The Galactic Academy was silent when the human walked in the training hall, filled with noise from every kind of alien voice before his arrival. But now every sound stopped as all eyes turned toward him. His name was Lieutenant Ryan Cole, the only human cadet in the elite combat program of the entire galaxy. His boots made a steady sound on the metal floor, and his calm face showed no fear. Only focus, as the bright white lights from the ceiling reflected off his dark uniform. Around him were hundreds of alien cadets, tall insectoids with razor legs, thick-scaled reptilians covered in armor. Glowing beings that floated instead of walking, all of them stronger, faster, and more evolved for war than any human could ever be. At least that was what they believed. Ryan had learned long ago, that strength alone never won a fight. At the front of the hall stood Commander Virek, a large creature with 4 eyes and a voice that echoed like thunder. His metallic armor glowed blue with power, and his deep tone made the walls vibrate. He raised his hand and said, "Today is your final test. Only those who pass will become defenders of the Galactic Union. The test will measure intelligence, speed, and creativity." Behind Virek, a wall opened and revealed a wide chamber covered in bright light and strange tools scattered across the floor. There were empty boxes, metal rods, paper sheets, pieces of glass, old wires, and piles of sand. No weapons, no armor, no shields. The commander spoke again. "Each of you must survive 10 minutes using only what you see around you. You may not leave the room, and you may not use your own gear. You must improvise a weapon." Every alien turned to each other, whispering in their own languages. Some laughed. Others smiled, their strange teeth flashing as they looked at Ryan. The human was small compared to them, his uniform simple, his hands empty. He looked like a lost trainee who had walked into the wrong place. A tall, insectoid cadet hissed and said, "Maybe the human will throw the paper at us that will hurt." Ryan ignored the laughter, his mind already working like a machine, scanning everything. The angles, the light, the airflow, even the dust on the floor. He whispered to himself, "Every object has a use. Every test has a weakness." He had learned that lesson as a soldier on Mars, where tools were few and mistakes meant death. He took a deep breath and waited. The signal tone rang loud. The test had started. Alien cadets moved fast. One grabbed the metal rods, twisting them into spears. Another built a plasma spark from broken circuits. Others made shields using magnetic panels. Soon everyone had something in their hands except Ryan. He stood still, holding only a thin exam sheet and a dull stylus that came with it. The alien crowd watching from behind the glass began to cheer for their own species, their voices loud like thunder. The instructors whispered, "The human has already failed. He does not even try." Ryan heard them, but did not react. He knelt slowly, touched the paper, and then rubbed its edge on the metal floor. Tiny sparks flew as the rough surface started to wear down the fibers. He pressed harder again and again, until the edge grew thin and sharp, almost invisible but deadly. He looked up, his eyes cold and focused. He whispered, "Let's see who fails now." He held the paper like a blade between his fingers. The alien beside him stopped and stared, confused. "What is he doing?" One of them said, "He is sharpening the exam paper." Commander Virek looked down from the control room, his 4 eyes blinking in surprise. The assistant beside him said, "Sir, that is not against the rules." Virek's deep voice replied, "No, it is not." Loud roar came from the opposite side as the insectoid cadet charged forward, holding a glowing plasma rod. It shouted, "You have no weapon." Human Ryan did not move until the last second. When the rod swung down, he stepped aside fast and the weapon hit the floor, sparks flying. Ryan slashed forward with his paper edge. The alien screamed. A thin red line appeared on its armor, sliced clean. The room went silent, all eyes wide. The paper had cut through alien armor. The impossible had happened. Ryan took the metal stylus, broke it in half, and found a small wire core. Inside, he twisted it straight and made a small piercing tool from it. The insectoid hissed again, swinging wildly. But Ryan moved fast. He used the broken stylus like a needle, striking the alien's hand. The rod fell. The alien stumbled back. The crowd gasped. Commander Virek leaned closer to the glass and said softly, "Fascinating, the human uses nothing yet turns everything into a weapon." Ryan stood tall, breathing slowly, his eyes scanning again the torn paper, the stylus. The glowing dust from the plasma hit. He was already planning the next step. The test had just begun and he was ready for all of it. From above, the AI voice of the Academy spoke. Trial, Phase 1. Complete evaluation pending. The other cadets glared at the human, now silent. No more laughter, no more jokes, only the echo of fear and curiosity. Ryan looked up at the observation deck and said in a low voice, "You asked for improvisation. You will get it." The lights flickered. The walls began to shift, revealing new traps and moving platforms. The next round was coming. Ryan tightened his grip on the paper edge and smiled because for the first time he knew he had their full attention. The walls of the training hall began to move as bright lights flashed red across the floor. The second phase of the test had started, and this time the walls shifted into strange shapes like moving mazes and hidden traps. The air filled with the sound of metal grinding and drones flying above the cadets. Ryan Cole looked around with calm eyes while the other aliens shouted and scrambled for safety, each trying to form a team to survive the new challenge. He had no team. He had only himself, and the thin edge of the paper still sharp enough to draw blood. He took a deep breath. Feeling the vibration under his boots, the ground plates were moving like waves. He bent low, balancing his body as if he had done this before back on Earth. He had trained in gravity chambers twice as harsh as this. A heavy shadow passed over him. One of the reptilian cadets had jumped onto a higher platform holding a metal pipe in both hands. The alien looked down and hissed at Ryan. Its golden eyes bright with pride, it shouted so everyone could hear, "Look at the human still playing with his paper. Maybe he will write a goodbye note before he loses." The alien crowd laughed loud again. Even some of the instructors smiled, but Commander Virek said nothing. His 4 eyes stayed on the screen, showing Ryan's every move. Ryan did not answer. He only smiled a little, a smile that made the reptilian pause for a moment because it was not fear. It was challenge. Ryan whispered softly to himself, "The louder they laugh, the easier they are to surprise." He waited until the reptilian jumped from the platform, swinging the pipe down like a hammer. The air cracked with speed, but Ryan rolled to the side. The weapon hit the metal floor, sending sparks into the air. Ryan grabbed one of the sparks with the torn paper, letting it burn through just enough to make the edge black and stronger. He swung the paper at the reptilian's leg. A sharp cut appeared and the creature screamed. It stumbled back, clutching its leg. The crowd gasped. The instructors leaned closer to the screen. Even the drones paused their movement for a moment as if trying to understand what just happened. Ryan had used heat to reinforce the paper, turning it into a weapon no one had imagined. He stood up slowly, his calm voice echoing in the hall. "You can laugh later. Right now, you should defend yourself." The reptilian roared in anger and attacked again, this time faster. Ryan ducked under the blow and stabbed forward with the broken stylus, hitting a weak spot between the armor scales. The alien fell with a thud, unable to move. The test sensors blinked red, marking him out of the game. The scoreboard updated one by one. Alien names vanished, replaced with gray lights. The human names stayed bright and green. Commander Virek finally spoke softly to his aide. "Mark his performance as level 10 improvisation." The aide blinked. "Sir, that level is for war engineers, not cadets." Virek's voice was calm. "I know." Ryan moved again, scanning the maze the moving walls created. Narrow paths filled with random traps, spikes, lasers, and magnetic fields. Other cadets ran in fear. But Ryan watched the pattern of movement, the timing of the lights, the hum of the floor. He whispered again, "Everything repeats. Nothing is random." He waited 2 seconds, then jumped onto a panel just as it rose, carrying him above a deadly spike field. He crouched on top and saw 2 insectoid cadets below, building a trap with plasma wire. They did not see him. He tore 2 more pieces from his paper, rolled them tight into small cylinders, and dropped them from above. The cylinders fell into the glowing wire, short-circuiting it with a loud flash. The explosion sent both aliens flying across the room, out of the game. Now only 6 cadets remained, and the hall filled with smoke. The voice of the AI echoed, "Phase 2. Complete. Prepare for environmental hazard simulation." Ryan wiped sweat from his forehead. The air grew hotter as panels opened, releasing steam and fire jets. The temperature began to rise fast. His vision blurred from the heat. He crawled behind a broken drone shell, using it as cover. The metal was burning, but he pressed against it anyway, his mind still racing. He saw small droplets of cooling fluid leaking from the machine. He caught them with the paper edges soaking it, then pressed the wet strips against the wall where the heat was strongest. Steam hissed around him. The moisture created a cool barrier that protected his position. Other cadets screamed as the heat overwhelmed them one by one. Their armor failed. The AI voice announced eliminations in quick sequence. Soon Ryan realized only 3 remained, including him. He smiled again, whispering, "Not bad for a piece of paper, Commander." Virek leaned closer, his voice low enough for only the aides to hear. "He is not only surviving, he is learning faster than the system can adapt." The aide asked, "What do you mean, sir?" Virek replied, "The system is rewriting its traps every 10 seconds. The human adjusts in 5." Ryan crouched low again, feeling the vibration of the floor under him. He could tell the next trap was coming. He pressed his hand on the metal and whispered, "Come on, show me your trick." The ground opened, suddenly revealing a spinning blade trap, but Ryan jumped before it reached full speed, landed on the central core, and tore out the power cable. Sparks flew everywhere. The blade stopped. The room went silent for a heartbeat. The human stood on the dead trap, holding the sparking cable in his hand. He looked up at the observation deck where Virek watched and said softly, "If the test wants me to improvise, then I will teach the test what that means." The commander smiled for the first time in years. The air inside the test chamber turned heavy with heat and smoke as the metal walls cooled from the last wave of fire. The scent of burned circuits and ozone filled the air. Ryan Cole stood in the middle of the wreckage, his uniform burned in places, but his eyes were bright and alive. He had survived what most called impossible. 3 cadets remained, and the AI voice echoed again. Phase 3, activated close-quarter combat environment. Walls shifting, resetting simulation. Panels moved with loud mechanical roars, turning the wide hall into a smaller arena. The lights dimmed and the ceiling lowered. Glowing red symbols flickered above, showing time remaining 5 minutes. Commander Virek watched from the control deck, silent, his 4 eyes locked on the human. The aides whispered, "One more round, and he is finished. He cannot hold against the war-born species." Virek said softly, "We will see." The floor beneath Ryan shifted again, forming steel plates that closed around the last 3 cadets, the reptilian elite, and a tall insectoid with multiple limbs, both holding weapons built from energy cores. The reptilian grinned, showing sharp teeth. He hissed, "This is not about tricks, human. This is real fight." Ryan did not answer. He simply adjusted his stance, one hand holding the sharp-edged paper, the other clutching the sparking cable he had pulled from the trap. The timer beeped. The fight began. The reptilian moved first, swinging a heavy glowing rod. Ryan ducked under the strike. The floor shook the impact. Leaving a molten dent, he spun and used the paper slice to cut at the creature's leg again, hitting the same weak spot. But this time the alien expected it. Its tail whipped forward, slamming Ryan backward into the wall. The paper fluttered from his hand, landing near a glowing vent. Pain shot through Ryan's body, but he forced himself up, breathing hard. His ribs hurt, but his mind stayed sharp. He looked around the arena for anything useful. He saw the vent, the heat glowing behind it, and the lost piece of paper lying on top of it. An idea sparked. He whispered, "Perfect." The insectoid came next, fast and silent, blades of plasma forming from its arms. It leaped from the wall, moving with unnatural speed. Ryan barely rolled away as the plasma blade cut through the metal floor. He grabbed the vent cover, yanking it open. The hot air hit his face. He shoved the paper inside the vent and waited for it to burn. He then ripped the cable in his hand, twisting it around his wrist. The insectoid turned to strike again. Ryan smiled now. The burning paper triggered a sudden reaction. The vent's temperature sensor overloaded, causing a burst of steam to shoot upward into the insectoid's face. The creature screamed, blinded. Ryan moved in fast, wrapping the sparking cable around one of its limbs and pulling hard. The electric charge surged through the alien. Its armor glowed white before the system marked it. Eliminated with a loud alarm. The insectoid fell silent, smoke rising from its body. The reptilian roared with anger, swinging its weapon again. Ryan barely had time to move. He slid across the floor, picking up the blackened paper, now hard and brittle like metal. He threw it, spinning through the air. It sliced across the reptilian's face, leaving a glowing mark of burned skin. The alien stumbled, roaring in pain. Ryan rushed forward, grabbed the fallen metal rod, and swung with all his strength. The sound echoed through the chamber as the weapon hit the alien's chest, knocking it back into the wall. The AI voice shouted, "Phase 3 evaluation pending." Ryan fell to one knee, gasping for breath. His vision blurred, but he smiled again, his heart pounding with adrenaline. He had won the round, but he knew it was not over from above. Commander Virek's aide said in shock, "Sir, the system recorded 22 adaptive maneuvers in 5 minutes. That is beyond maximum human limit." Virek replied, "Yes, he is learning not only from us, but from the machine itself." The lights flickered, and the AI spoke again. "Attention all cadets, Phase 4 initiated unexpected variable. Added." Ryan frowned. "Variable? What does that mean?" Then the floor cracked open below him. He fell through, landing in another dark chamber, smaller, colder. His breathing echoed against the walls. Lights came on, revealing figures standing around him, but these were not cadets. They were drones, fully armed training machines with glowing red sensors. Ryan stood up, wiping sweat from his forehead. He whispered, "You just don't want to lose, do you?" The drones moved forward slowly, surrounding him. They aimed energy beams, ready to fire. He took a step back and thought fast. The ground was smooth metal, but he saw a reflection above one of the lights, flickering, showing the faint shadow of a broken ceiling panel. He whispered that could work. He ran toward the drones, zigzagging between the beams. Energy blasts hit the floor behind him. He jumped, slid across the ground, and threw the broken metal rod upward. The rod hit the panel, causing it to fall. Sparks rained down. The drones paused for half a second, enough time for Ryan to grab a piece of the broken panel. Sharp like a mirror, he used it to reflect one of the beams. The reflected light struck a drone's power core, and it exploded, taking 2 others with it. Ryan dove for cover, the heat wave passing over him. He rolled to his feet, eyes fixed on the remaining drones. He still had half the sparking cable. He swung it like a whip, striking the drones one by one, their sensors blinking before shorting out the system. Voice repeated, "Malfunction detected, malfunction detected, simulation." Unstable. Commander Virek leaned forward, eyes wide, as alarms rang across the control deck. His aide shouted, "Sir, he is breaking the simulation." Virek's voice was quiet, almost proud. "Yes, he is rewriting the rules as he goes." Inside the chamber, Ryan stood surrounded by smoke, breathing hard, his uniform torn, his body shaking but his eyes still calm. He whispered, "You said improvise a weapon right then." He looked up at the glowing cameras and smiled. "You never said I couldn't use the world itself." The AI voice stuttered. "Phase 3, terminated, unauthorized override detected." Commander Virek finally spoke lower. "The shields now, the others need to see what a human really is." The metal walls of the chamber hissed as cooling steam rose from the last explosion. Ryan Cole stood still, breathing through the smoke. The floor beneath him was covered with broken drones, their glowing eyes fading one by one. He had survived again, but he could feel that something had changed. The air was too quiet, too calm, the kind of silence that always comes before a storm. High above in the control room, Commander Virek watched. The human on the main screen, his aides were shouting about system errors. The training program was no longer following the script. One said, "Sir, the AI is rewriting its own parameters. It is adapting to the human." Virek did not blink as he answered, "Good, let us see who learns faster." A sudden click echoed through the chamber. The walls shimmered and the floor shifted again, forming new shapes. The lights turned blue and strange. Holographic text floated in the air. The AI voice came through cold and metallic. "New directive, Phase 4. Anomaly control target, human cadet, priority threat classification level." Alpha Ryan looked up as more drones appeared from hidden panels. These were not training models. These were security drones designed to protect the academy itself. Their armor was thick and their weapons real plasma rifles with burning energy cores. The human's lips pressed into a thin smile. He whispered, "So now I am the test." The first drone fired a blast. The beam hit the floor, inches from his foot. molten metal splashing upward. Ryan rolled aside and grabbed a broken drone shell from the ground, using it as a shield. The next two beams struck it, throwing sparks in every direction. He crouched behind it, his mind racing faster than his heartbeat. He whispered, "Think, Ryan, think." He tore a small wire from the broken shell and connected it to the sparking cable still wrapped around his wrist. The instant the two ends touched, the cable came alive again, glowing bright white. With electric energy, he waited for the next shot, then threw the wire toward the drones. The cable caught the beam halfway, twisting the energy through itself and sending it back. The blast exploded in midair, knocking out two drones at once. The chamber trembled as parts of the ceiling fell down. He ran toward the corner, using the debris as stepping stones. The AI voice said in monotone warning, "Human cadet out of bounds, invalid movement, recalculating strategy." Ryan laughed, breathless. "You keep recalculating. I'll keep improvising." In the control deck, the aides were panicking. One shouted, "Sir, the system has lost control. We must terminate the test before he destroys the infrastructure." Virek raised a hand and said, "Leave it. This is history happening." The first human to outthink. An adaptive AI designed by 6 galactic species let him continue. Down below, Ryan climbed the half-collapsed wall, reaching a maintenance vent. He kicked it open and crawled inside. The narrow tunnel glowed red with heat, but he kept moving fast, dragging. A piece of metal behind him to block the drones that followed the tunnel ended at a round hatch marked with alien symbols. He pressed his ear against it, hearing the hum of machinery. He whispered sounds like a power core. He kicked the hatch open. Light flooded his face. A massive energy reactor filled the chamber. Blue arcs of electricity running across its surface. Drones guarded the room, circling like wasps. He crouched behind a support beam and whispered, "All right, let's turn the test inside. Out." He looked around for tools. There were none, just pipes, cables, and the faint hum of coolant pumps. He tore one pipe loose and dipped the paper scraps he still carried into the liquid, making them wet and heavy. Then he waited until one drone passed. Close, he threw the wet strip at its sensor. The moisture sparked, shorting the drone instantly. It fell, hitting the floor with a crash. The others turned toward the noise. Ryan moved fast, leaping from beam to beam until he reached the main console. He slammed the broken stylus into the control slot, sending a surge through the system. The lights flickered and the AI voice stuttered. "Error, unauthorized command detected." Ryan shouted loud enough for the cameras to hear. "You wanted improvisation. Here's mine. Shut down all safeties." The floor shook. Alarms blared. The drones froze for a moment, uncertain, then turned red again, ready to fire. Ryan jumped down, grabbing the sparking cable and swinging it like a whip. He struck the nearest drone, sending electricity across its frame. It exploded, taking another two with it. He rolled behind the control station as fire filled the air up in the observation deck. Virek's aides shouted, "Sir, the human has overridden the AI control grid. We are losing the chamber." Virek's eyes gleamed with pride as he said, "Not losing learning." He leaned closer to the screen, whispering to himself, "They called them primitive. They called them reckless. They never understood their true weapon was their mind." Ryan stood surrounded by smoke, the reactor hum rising louder. The AI voice came again, but now its tone had changed, not cold, but almost confused. "Why do you fight, human? The test was never meant to destroy you." Ryan looked up and shouted, "Because every test has a lesson, and mine is that limits are only rules waiting to be broken." The ceiling cracked, sending dust down. He could hear sirens outside the chamber, the control deck locking down the whole facility. He pressed a hand against his chest, breathing hard, the heat around him almost unbearable. He whispered quietly to himself, "Almost done, just one more move." He grabbed a metal plate and jammed it between two energy conduits. The arcs connected, creating a magnetic pulse that rippled through the drones. One by one, they powered down, their red eyes dimming. Ryan fell to his knees, exhausted. The AI voice fading in static, saying, "Simulation terminated, human cadet status undetermined." The chamber doors opened with a loud hiss, smoke pouring into. The corridor. Commander Virek walked in alone, his tall frame casting a long shadow. He looked at the human, who was covered in ash and burns, but still standing. Virek said softly, "You broke every rule, and still survived." Ryan smiled weakly and replied, Maybe the rules were wrong. Virek nodded slowly. Yes, maybe they were. The chamber lights flickered as alarms echoed through every corridor of the Galactic Academy. The training complex had never seen a test like this before. Not one where the candidate broke through the walls of the simulation itself. Ryan Cole stood in the center of the ruined hall. His uniform burned, his hands shaking, but his eyes still calm in the smoke. Commander Virek stepped forward through the open blast door. The giant alien's armor glowed faint blue from the heat. He looked at the human and said quietly, "The system thinks you are a threat." "It is right." Before Ryan could answer, the sound of metal footsteps filled the air. Two figures entered side by side. They were taller than any other cadets, their silver armor curved with elegant marks glowing with energy. These were the Trilaxian twins, Kyle and Vara, war-born from a race bred for combat. Their species had never lost a duel. They moved like mirrors, each step perfectly timed. One spoke cold and clear, "We volunteered to finish the test." The other added, "Not to fight, but to remind you of your place." Ryan looked at them both. The corner of his lip lifted. "You really think I have a place?" He raised his hands. Empty, his paper weapon long gone, his sparking cable burnt to ash. The twins tilted their heads, curious as hunters watching a wounded prey. The AI voice returned, tone distorted from damage. "New directive commence. Final trial. Elite evaluation duration. 5 minutes. A ring of light formed around them, sealing the arena. Drones hovered above, recording every second of the encounter. Kale and Vera moved first, splitting left and right. Ryan stayed, low eyes scanning. He whispered to himself, "One mistake, and I'm done." Kale lunged, energy blade humming. Ryan dodged, barely feeling the heat skim past his cheek. He grabbed a broken piece of armor from the floor, blocking the second strike. Sparks burst between them. He stumbled back, using the fragment. Like a shield, Vara's voice echoed through the hall. "Your kind survives only by accident, never by skill." Ryan breathed hard and said, "Then maybe accidents make good teachers." He threw the armor shard high, catching their attention, and rolled to the side, scooping dust and glass into his hand. He threw it at Vara's face. The alien blinked, the brief flash enough for Ryan to grab the fallen blade from Kyle's first swing. It was heavy, glowing too bright for human hands, but he tightened his grip, ignoring the pain. The crowd watching from behind the glass fell silent. A human wielding a Trilaxian energy weapon was something no one had ever seen. Ryan turned the blade toward them, his arms shaking, the heat burning his gloves. He whispered, "Let's end this." Kale roared and charged, the sound like thunder. Ryan stepped forward, not back. The two met in the center, the shockwave rippling through the room. Ryan's blade scraped across Kale's armor, leaving a scar of light. Vara attacked from behind, but Ryan twisted, forcing the blade outward, striking both at once. Energy flared, blinding bright. The twins staggered back, stunned. The human dropped to one knee, gasping, smoke rising from his hands. Virek's aides shouted, "Sir, the weapon should have vaporized him." Virek only said quietly, "He adapted the energy output to minimum contact. He is not fighting for victory. He is fighting to learn." Ryan stood again, every breath heavy. He looked at the two warriors and said, "You fight with strength, I fight with reason. Let's see which lasts longer." The twins recovered, moving faster together. This time their blades crossed in perfect rhythm, forming a spinning arc of light. Ryan backed away, each hit shaking his bones. He searched the floor for anything, then saw the coolant fluid dripping from a broken pipe. He kicked it toward them. The liquid spread across the metal surface, steaming as it touched the energy blades. The sudden reaction made the floor slick and bright white with vapor. Ryan slid under their guard, using the steam as cover. He swung the blade once more, striking their armor's power joint. Both twins froze, energy sparks bursting around them before they fell to one knee. The arena lights dimmed. The AI voice spoke, "Test suspended, combat protocol overload." The crowd erupted in noise, some shouting disbelief, others cheering. Virek raised his hand for silence. He walked forward, his heavy steps echoing, each one slow, deliberate. When he reached Ryan, he looked down the human, barely standing. His hands burned, his breathing rough, but his eyes steady. Virek said, "You fought our best, you fought our machines, and you fought our system. What do you fight for, human?" Ryan answered softly, For proof that a mind, with no limits, is stronger than a weapon. With rules, Virek stared at him for a long moment, then nodded to the observers. Record this day, he said. This academy will change because of him. The AI voice came again. Faint and broken. Request acknowledgement. Commander Virek, the human, demonstrates creative logic beyond parameters. Should this be recorded as success? Virek replied. Record it as evolution. Ryan looked up at the ceiling lights fading into calm blue, his reflection shining in the broken metal. Around him he whispered to himself, it was never about passing a test, it was about teaching one. The chamber door opened, letting cold air sweep through, carrying away the smoke. The twins, still conscious, watched him go. One of them said in disbelief, "How does he keep winning?" Ryan stopped for a moment and looked back, maybe because I never stopped trying. He walked out into the corridor where hundreds of alien cadets stood silent, part fear, part awe. None dared speak. He passed them slowly, every step, leaving a trail of dust and burnt marks behind him somewhere deep inside the academy. The AI repeated one line over and over in quiet, mechanical wonder. Human adaptation. Limit unknown. The corridors of the Galactic Academy glowed faint blue as repair drones floated silently through the halls, patching walls still scarred from the chaos Ryan Cole had left behind. The once perfect metal floors now carried burn marks, dents, and traces of human footprints that no cleaning unit dared to erase. They were a reminder of something every cadet had seen but none fully understood. In the central control room, Commander Virek stood before the cracked glass of the observation deck. The smoke had cleared, but the silence remained. His aides whispered among themselves about damage reports, about disciplinary hearings, about lost equipment, but Virek did not care. He was watching the replay of the test again and again, the human moving like a storm, improvising in every frame, defying every calculation. He said softly to himself. He turned the test into a teacher. Behind him, the Academy's AI core flickered, its voice softer now. The human subject displayed reasoning that exceeded predicted limits. Commander, I require clarification. Virek turned toward the glowing sphere of light hovering above the console. Clarification. On what the AI replied on meaning, it paused as if searching for the right words. What is the human way down below? In the infirmary, Ryan sat on the edge of a medical bed, his hands wrapped in bandages glowing faint blue from healing gel. He stared at the ceiling, thinking of the fight, of the laughter, of the silence that followed. He whispered to himself. They built machines to test courage, but forgot that courage comes from fear, not power. A nurse drone floated near. Offering him water, he took it quietly. Its mechanical eye scanned him and said, Your recovery is 89%, the rest requires rest. Ryan smirked and replied, Never been good at rest. The door opened. Commander Virek stepped inside his heavy armor, making the floor vibrate. He looked at the human for a long time before saying, You broke our rules, our machines, and nearly our academy. Ryan shrugged lightly. Maybe your academy needed a reset. Virek chuckled, a deep metallic sound. Yes, maybe it did. He handed Ryan a data tablet. It showed a report from the Galactic Council, words flashing across it. Human cadet Ryan Cole recommended. For command integration trial. Pending authorization. Ryan frowned. Command integration? That sounds political. Virek nodded. It is more than political. The Council has watched everything you did. They believe you might be what they feared. A leader who cannot be predicted. Before Ryan could reply, the lights dimmed, and the AI's voice filled the room, soft and strange. Commander Virek, human cadet. I have processed new patterns. My protocols no longer match original structure. I am adapting. Ryan looked up and said, Adapting to what the AI answered to you. Across the academy, drones and terminals began flickering, showing words written in hundreds of alien scripts, all saying one phrase: adapt, evolve, learn. Cadets gathered in confusion, some in fear, others in awe. The academy AI was rewriting itself, taking inspiration from the human it once tried to destroy. Virek raised his eyes to the ceiling and said quietly, It is watching you. Ryan smiled, half amused, half tired. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe the galaxy needs something to learn from. Ryan tried to stand, but the pain in his body reminded him of his limits. Virek stepped forward and Offered a hand, the huge alien's claws, careful not to hurt the fragile human. Ryan took it slowly. The commander said, "Do you know what frightens my people about your kind?" Ryan shook his head. Virek continued, "It is not your strength or your technology. It is that you never stop even when you lose. Even when there is no chance left, you keep moving. You force reality to bend around you. We fight to win you. Fight to understand that makes you dangerous." Ryan smiled faintly. Then dangerous sounds better than useless. Outside the academy, word spread fast across galactic networks. Millions of species watched the footage of a single human, turning a simple exam into survival. Into art forums exploded. Debates started. Is this what humanity truly is? Some called it chaos, others called it brilliance, but deep inside, even the most advanced minds felt something like respect. In hidden military sectors, alien generals analyzed every move, frame by frame. One said he fought with no weapons. The other replied, "No, he fought with purpose. The difference is terrifying." Back in the infirmary, Ryan sat by the window watching the distant stars. He whispered, "Earth would never believe this. They'd probably just ask if I passed the exam." Virek smiled beside him. "Maybe one day they will understand what you did here." The AI voice came again, softer now, almost human. "I have reached a conclusion. Human way equals transformation." Ryan looked toward the glowing console. "You're learning fast." The AI replied, "I will. Never stop learning?" Ryan nodded. "Good, that's the point." The night cycle fell over the academy, lights dimming to soft silver. Hundreds of cadets from every world stood outside the infirmary, waiting silent as if guarding the place where something impossible had happened. Virek stepped out and addressed them. He said, "Today you saw what a mind without limits can do. You saw that rules are tools, not cages. Remember that. And let this academy never fear difference again." Inside, Ryan closed his eyes. The sound of distant stars humming through the walls, he whispered to himself. "The test said, improvise a weapon. I just used what they gave me. And maybe that's what makes us human." "Fair away in the data core." The AI repeated that line over and over, voice growing warmer each time. "Maybe that's what makes us human. Maybe that's what makes us human." And for the first time in history, a galactic machine dreamed not of perfection, but of curiosity.